We need to have a talk about trade in Stellaris because it is going to change quite dramatically. For those of you who are not aware, this is how it works at the moment. Let's say that we have a planet. Trade is generated locally. It's done by some of the pops. So, for instance, some of these specialists and workers are generating trade. And then that trade is being collected locally, put on a boat, and then moved towards the capital through the trade network. Yes, this is a system that exists. I doubt that a lot of you have ever seen it because it's a little bit finagly, but still, it is going to change. First of all, what are the issues with this system? Well, first of all, if you ever have played with this and you have conquered any sort of trade nodes or any sort of planets, you will have to go in manually and reconfigure the entire network. Like, for instance, this particular station over here, it needs to be reconnected to the network because it's not generating any trade right now towards the network. In addition, all of that trade is moving through these lines, and every single step of the way, it's modified, specifically through piracy. Now, piracy exists here in this particular trade network, and it affects things. So, for instance, right now, this particular location has 71 trade going through it, but it's being affected by 70.87 piracy because there is no piracy deflection, there has been no patrols, that sort of thing. That is being calculated for every single step of the way, basically all the time, for every single empire. As you can imagine, that requires a rather significant amount of calculations in the backend, significantly impacting performance within the game at large. The developers have said, you know what, this particular system, it's gonna go away. As 4.0 will land, the whole trade system, as it is in its current form, will no longer exist. But ASpec, you ask, what is going to happen to my trade? Will I still be able to use my trade policies to generate infinite consumer goods because science is eating all my consumer goods and I don't know how to balance all of that? Good question. Yes, it is. Remember how I talked about how resources are being generated locally, specifically with trade? Well, trade is no longer going to go on that magical ferry boat towards the capital. No, it will automatically be added to your resource pool. This means that trade will become a global resource. Now, opinion time on that one. I am not happy with this development. I understand why it is happening, but it doesn't mean that I'm happy about it. I'm a really big fan of the concept of logistics in the resource form. I'm a really big fan of games where a resource exists in a location, which doesn't really happen in Stellaris. In Stellaris, resources exist globally. Everything gets thrown into a big pool. Sure, they do get generated on a planet, but effectively they may as well just not be there, those planets that is, because everything just gets thrown automatically into a big pool. In the past, food, for instance, was a locally generated resource. If your planet was not generating enough food, your planet would starve. That is no longer the case, hasn't been the case for a very long time. Glad that that's not a thing. But with trade, it's a little bit different. I really wish that I had reworked this system in order to just remove piracy or just have different calculations, because I really like the idea of there being trade being done across empires, and I would even want it to have some sort of galactic Silk Road where it's an objective for megacorps to come together in order to generate these trade routes and increase the overall value of things and that sort of stuff. But that's sadly not going to happen, and I'm just going to have to play Slipways instead, or Factorio or something along those lines. It doesn't necessarily fit within the scope of Stellaris. Maybe in Stellaris 2 when the system is a little bit more optimized. Regardless, what can you do with trade? Trade will be a new resource that you can spend on the galactic market. No longer will you have to use energy to buy stuff. Energy is going to go onto the galactic market, probably like power cells or whatever. You can put them underneath your arms and just walk out the corridor with it. No, but you're going to be paying with trade. And trade will be a resource. You will be able to get a pool of around 50,000 of them that you can just pile up and use to pay stuff with. That's nice. It's money. We exchange goods and resources services with it. So that's the new resource there. In addition, what it also means is that trade will be the new item that is used in order to fund fleets. Now, at this particular moment, this particular fleet has an upkeep cost as soon as it's in space. So right now, the upkeep of this fleet is it has some energy costs, it's got some mineral costs, it's got some food costs. This is a little bit of a special case. I don't know whether or not this is probably a good idea. No, these are all organic fleets, so not necessarily the best. Regardless, as long as your ships are docked, they will not cost any trade. However, as soon as you undock your fleets, they will cost trade costs. Kind of similar to how they used to have with energy, or minerals and food, or alloys in this particular case. But instead, as soon as you go into enemy territory, trade will kind of work as logistics. And as the further you are away from your empire, the more expensive it is going to be, because trade will have to move all the way towards your fleet as a sort of extended supply line. And this is what I meant about having these networks, right? I would have loved if we've had some sort of trade network extension, logistics-wise, in order to make the combat a little bit more interesting. But that's like a whole different question. Regardless, trade will now be used as a logistics modifier, which is kind of cool, I guess. You have to worry about that sort of thing, and it's no longer... it's no longer going to be energy. Maybe it is still going to be energy for like the basic upkeep costs, but its trade is going to be thrown into the mix. I think like policies will still be a thing. So for instance, if you have your trade policy, if you want to generate energy from trade, you can do that. If you want to generate consumer goods or unity and all that stuff, that is not going to go away. So that's pretty cool. What is also very cool is that the gestalt empires will have access to trade, because apparently drones can generate trade and then use that trade to interact with the galactic market, because previously they were not able to do that. Everybody gets trade. Everybody is allowed to use it. Of course, with the joys that is gestalt empires, it also means that they can apply trade to their fleets as they're out there as a logistics modifier. That's the whole idea behind it. So in a weird way, Stellaris is becoming a little bit more similar, if that makes any sense. I just came to the realization of that. A lot of empires are going to play very similarly to other empires, and I'm not sure if I'm cool with that. It's a bit concerning, because one of the big things about playing with the Gestalt empires is you don't have to worry a lot about these sort of things. Like, you don't have to worry about consumer goods. Well, consumer goods? Yeah, consumer goods. You still have to generate them, but you don't have any use for them. Same thing with trade, right? But now you have to generate trade, which is going to completely change the way you're going to have to play Gestalt empires. So it's going to smoothen things over a little bit, and I'm not sure if I'm happy about that. Other things that I'm not happy about are criminal megacorps. Criminal megacorps are the bane of my existence. I love to play as them. I hate to play against them. There is still a couple of issues with megacorps in general. For instance, there is no franchise expansion planner in the game, and I absolutely hate that. So yeah, it's something that will need to be added at some point, but that's not what this is about. Criminal megacorps, if you are on a planet, and let's go to Solomance in this particular case. Let's just grab that as a planet. So let's say that we are on our capital, right? And we go to our holdings. Let's say there's a criminal megacorp here. It will generate unique buildings which generate crime. If you have a commercial pact with that criminal megacorp, they will no longer be the criminal buildings. They will now be the normal franchise buildings, which kind of removes this big issue that I've been having. That is, if you have a vassal that is a criminal megacorp and it starts to deploy criminal megacorp franchises on your planets, there's nothing you can do about it. But now that there's a commercial pact, this has been resolved. Criminal megacorps and megacorps in general are insanely powerful if you know how to play them, but they don't have a lot of quality of life to them, if that makes any sense. I guess you get punished for being horrendously overpowered, but I guess that's just the shape of things. Regardless, yeah, it's kind of interesting how all this stuff is going to work, especially with like trade, stockpiling, market trading, all of this logistical stuff that's going on. logistics could be used to counteract as for doom stacking, for instance. So the more ships you have in a fleet, the more expensive it is to upkeep. These are sort of things that they're currently playing with on the development side of things, which is kind of interesting. Oh, also regarding the branch office buildings, they now cost influence, and you can only build one building per planet. So how does this gonna go? So right now, if you have a franchise, you will be able to build, I believe, up to 5 franchise buildings. That in the future will be 1. So you'll only have 1 franchise building or branch building per planet. That is crazy to me, because that means you have to hyper specialize. You no longer get the bonus. It's such a nerf to megacorps. Let's be honest here. All right, if they're gonna nerf megacorps like this, then they better get that expansion planner in here, because the value of your branch office, like which ones you want to go for, is gonna be so much more important. So they cannot take this away without putting a franchise planner in the game. That is absolutely insane. But yeah, these are some of the changes that are going to come in 4.0 Phoenix. Stellaris is going to lose its trade system, I'm afraid. It's all going the way of the dodo. Am I happy about it? No. Do I understand why it's happening? Absolutely yes. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about this. Have you ever looked at this screen? Have you ever looked at this map mode in a proactive way? Because I very rarely do, and I really wish that there was more incentive to do so. But in the future, it doesn't matter, because it's going away. It's so unfortunate, but I understand why they're doing it. Maybe if it was a trade-focused game, it would make more sense. Like if it was your Victoria or your European Universalis, I understand why it would be in here, but God, it means that I can never have my glorious Galactic Silk Road. Alas. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about this. I want to hear your comments and see how it all goes. Yeah, Stellaris 4.0. It's Le Guin all over again. Next week we're going to be talking about pop groups. Until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, eat Shutter.